everyone, welcome to lesson 32. My name is Danielle. It's great to be back with you again. Let's remember together, last lesson we learnt that we can measure more than just how big something is. Remember we know that there are many different kinds of big. We can measure how cold something is. We can measure how much something holds. We can measure time or how long something will last. We can measure how heavy something is. Or we can measure how long something is. Remember, mathematicians call this the attributes. How did you go with your home task? I'd like to share what I did. In my book, lesson 31, this is what I discovered. Remember together we talked about my drink bottle. We said that we could measure how much it holds, how wide it is, or how tall it is. Then I found a chair and I thought I could measure how deep the chair is, how wide it is, or how tall it is. I thought about my blanket and I thought that I could measure how thick it is, how wide it is, how long it is. I was looking at my phone and I thought, what could I measure with my phone? I could measure how long it is, how wide it is, or the time of the battery that's left. I also was looking at one of the dolls that I had at home and I was thinking about what could I measure there. I thought I could measure how heavy it was. I also thought I could measure how long it is. Did you know that when we measure babies, we have to measure them laying down because they aren't yet standing up to measure how tall they are. So we measure how long they are. Our learning intention today is to know and use words to describe the different attributes of length. To get started, we're going to think about the attribute of length. What words could we use to describe length? We're going to stop and think together. You're going to write down as many words that you can think of when describing length. For example, I might use the words taller or shorter, so I would write them down. I would use these words when explaining that I am taller than my son, but shorter than my friend. So I will write them down. The first word is taller. The second word I know, which would describe length, is shorter. I want you to pause the video now and see how many words you can think of when describing length. How did you go? Here are some words that you may have had on your list. If you didn't, you might like to add them. Shorter. I had that one here, so I'm going to stick that right on top. Did you have shorter on your list? Oh, this one is shortest. You might say things like, I am the shortest in my family. The next word is wide. We might be talking about how wide a river is. Let's stick that up. Oh, now we have longest. You might say, I have the longest legs. This one is short. You might use this word when saying, I have short hair. I'll stick that one there. Oh, this is an interesting one. This one is narrow. So narrow is the opposite to wide. Let's stick that up. I might stick that there next to wide. This one is long. Once again, you might be saying, I have long hair. Let's stick that here. Tallest. Or you might be describing a building and say that it's the tallest building you've ever seen. Let's stick that here. Thick. You might use the word thick when describing a book, seeing how thick it is. Oh, this is an interesting one. Shallow. You might use the word shallow when you're thinking about the pool and how much water is in there. Let's stick that up. And here's the opposite to shallow, deep. Maybe you might say that you are going in the deep end of the pool. This one is tall. You might say that I'm going to build a tall tower. Let's stick that one here. Longer. Ooh, where might we use the word longer? You might say that my Play-Doh snake is longer than yours. Longer. And our last one, thin. Maybe you might say this paper is very thin. Let's stick that here. Length is more than just how long or short something is. We can measure different kinds of long. We can measure how long, how tall, how wide, how thick, or how deep something is. I have some images here. Let's have a look at the different kinds of long that we can see. So here we have some children who had just about finished running a race. What kind of long do you think we could measure here? Yeah, perhaps we could measure how long the track was, how long they had to run. Well done. Who likes playing in the sandpit? Now these children here have been very busy digging like a big tunnel type thing. So what kinds of long could we see here? We could measure how deep the tunnel is. We could measure how wide it is. How wide? Or we could measure how long it is. Our last one. Here's a picture of a boy and we're measuring how tall he is. Remember we talked about when babies are measured, they are laying down and we measure how long they are because they aren't standing yet. But when you're old enough to stand, then we start measuring how tall you are. Great job. Now I have some objects here and we're going to talk about the different types of long that we could measure here. Will you help me? Great. Now here we have a shoe. What could we measure here? That's right. We could measure how long it is, how wide the shoe is, or we could measure how deep it is. Let's take another look. Let's have a look at the cup. What could we measure here? Once again, we could measure how deep the cup is. We could measure how tall the cup is, how thick the cup is. Let's do another object. Okay, here we have the book. We could measure how wide the book is. We could measure how long the book is. Or we could measure how thick it is. Here's a toy truck. What could we measure here? What do you think? Yes, we could measure how long it is. We could measure how wide the truck is. Or we could measure how tall the truck is. The last one here, now this is interesting. I've got two different pieces of paper, and you can see that we could measure here the different thickness, because using those words again, this paper is quite thin, whereas this paper here is quite thick. So we could measure the thickness. Or we could measure the width of the paper, or the length. Thanks for helping me. Your home task is to find 5 things to measure the length of. Would you measure how long it is? How wide it is? How deep it is? Or how tall it is? You could even measure how thick it is. For example, what could be measured about this truck? We could measure how tall it is, how long it is. We could measure how wide it is, or how far it travels. I want you to draw these pictures in your book or on paper. Draw lines or arrows to show what could be measured about the object. Today we have learned that length is more than just how long something is. We know that we can measure how long, how tall, how deep, how wide, or how thick something is. Mathematicians use words like these when talking about length. Thin, shorter, shortest, wide, longest, thick, deep, tallest, short, longer, narrow, long, shallow, and tall. Thanks for joining me, everybody. See you next time.